Months passed, and life began to change, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The Starbreaker, once a symbol of fear and aggression, was decommissioned and transformed into something new. Its massive frame became a museum and diplomatic hub, orbiting Earth as a reminder of humanity's potential for both destruction and redemption. Visitors from across the stars came to see it, walking through its halls and learning about the battles fought, the sacrifices made, and the lessons learned. Captain Ryan Mitchell stepped down from active duty, choosing instead to write his memoirs. He spent hours reflecting on leadership, sacrifice, and the weight of command. His words inspired many, especially young cadets training to explore the stars. War teaches us what we're capable of, he wrote in one passage. But peace shows us who we can become. Lieutenant Grace Monroe recovered fully from her injuries and became a celebrated figure. Though she avoided the spotlight, she traveled often, sharing her experiences with anyone willing to listen. Her message was simple: courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right, even when you're scared. She hoped her story would encourage others to take risks for the greater good. Back on Earth, Daniel Carter retired from engineering. The stress of working on weapons like the Starbreaker had taken its toll, and he wanted a quieter life. He found joy in teaching, mentoring students at a local university about responsible innovation. Technology is a tool, he often said during lectures. It's up to us to decide whether it builds or destroys. Emily Dawson continued her advocacy work, becoming a voice for peace and cooperation. She organized conferences that brought humans and aliens together, fostering understanding between species. Her efforts earned her recognition, but she remained humble, always reminding herself why she started: to make the galaxy a better place. The Zorethians, once enemies, became uneasy allies. Joint missions between their fleets and Earth's ships grew more common, each one strengthening the fragile bond they shared. It wasn't perfect. Mistrust lingered, but progress was undeniable. Together, they explored ancient ruins left behind by the Kalari, uncovering knowledge that helped them understand the galaxy's history and their role in shaping its future. Even the Varnax Consortium softened their stance toward humanity. With Senator Harold Green exposed and imprisoned, there was no one left to fan the flames of hatred. Trade agreements replaced threats, and cultural exchanges flourished. Slowly, the galaxy began to feel less divided. As years went by, humanity looked back on the events surrounding the Starbreaker with mixed emotions. Some saw it as a turning point, a moment when Earth proved it could stand tall among the stars. Others viewed it as a warning, a reminder of how close they had come to disaster. Both perspectives were true, and both shaped the course of history. One evening, Daniel stood outside his home, gazing up at the night sky. Emily joined him, wrapping an arm around his waist. "Do you think we'll ever get it right?" she asked softly. "I don't know," Daniel replied, "but I think we're getting closer." Earth's first starship had changed everything, not just the balance of power, but the way humanity saw itself. It had shown them their flaws, their fears, and their capacity for greatness. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: humanity was ready to face it, together. As the stars twinkled above, a sense of hope filled the air. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges yet unseen, but for the first time in a long time, humanity felt prepared, not because they had weapons or shields, but because they had each other. And sometimes, that was enough. The AI fleet lay in ruins, its flagship destroyed and its control system disabled. The machines drifted lifelessly through space, their once threatening presence now reduced to silent wreckage. But the victory came at a cost. Lieutenant Grace Monroe's shuttle returned to the Starbreaker battered and scorched, her body weakened from injuries sustained during the mission. The crew worked tirelessly to stabilize her condition, but her bravery had left an indelible mark on everyone aboard. Back on Earth, Daniel Carter watched the aftermath unfold from the safety of the Orbital Defense Initiative. News of the joint human-Zorathian effort spread quickly, sparking cautious optimism across the galaxy. For the first time, humanity wasn't seen as just a rival or aggressor. It was viewed as a partner. Even so, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that this fragile alliance was built on shifting ground. Trust between species wouldn't come easily, especially after years of fear and mistrust. Senator Harold Green's betrayal had been exposed thanks to Daniel and Dr. Laura Bennett's efforts. Arrested and stripped of his position, Green became a symbol of corruption and greed. Yet Daniel knew that exposing him hadn't solved everything. The damage done by his actions lingered, fueling tensions among alien factions who still doubted Earth's intentions. Meanwhile, aboard the Starbreaker, Captain Ryan Mitchell gathered the crew for a final debrief before heading home. He stood on the bridge, his face lined with exhaustion, but also quiet pride. "We did what we had to do," he began, his voice steady. "But none of this would have been possible without sacrifice. Lieutenant Monroe gave us a chance to survive, and maybe even thrive." Grace, still recovering in the medical bay, listened to the speech over the intercom. Her heart swelled with gratitude, though she wished she could have been there in person. She thought about the engineers who had risked their lives alongside her, about the countless others who had fought and died to protect something greater than themselves. As the Starbreaker approached Earth's orbit, preparations were already underway for a new era of diplomacy. Human leaders met with Zorathian envoys aboard the ship, discussing ways to rebuild trust and ensure peace. It wasn't easy. Old wounds ran deep, but both sides seemed willing to try. One evening, Ryan found himself alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Grace joined him quietly, leaning against the railing. "Do you think it'll last?" she asked, breaking the silence. "I don't know," Ryan admitted, "but I think we owe it to ourselves, and to them, to try." Grace nodded slowly. "It's strange, isn't it? We spent so long thinking they were our enemies. Now we're working together." "Fear does that," Ryan said. "It makes us see threats where there might be allies instead." On Earth, Emily Dawson continued her advocacy work, organizing events to promote cooperation and understanding between humans and aliens. Though she remained critical of the militarization of space, she acknowledged the importance of dialogue. "If we want peace," she told a crowd during one speech, "we have to start by listening, not just speaking." Daniel visited her often, sharing updates about the Starbreaker's mission and the progress being made. Together, they dreamed of a future where weapons like the Starbreaker weren't needed, a future where exploration and unity replaced conflict and division. For now, however, the galaxy remained fragile, its balance teetering between hope and uncertainty. Humanity had taken its first steps toward redemption, proving that it could rise above its mistakes. But the road ahead would require patience, courage, and unwavering determination. As the stars shimmered in the distance, one truth became clear. The story of Earth's rise was far from over, and neither was its struggle to find its place among the stars. The battle against the machines had been won, but the cost was high. The Starbreaker limped through space, its systems barely holding together after the fierce fight. On the bridge, Captain Ryan Mitchell stared at the damage reports scrolling across his screen. Repairs would take weeks, maybe longer. But time wasn't something they had. The remaining machines were regrouping, their numbers still vast despite the losses. If humanity and the Zorathians didn't act quickly, the machines would return stronger and deadlier. Ryan called a meeting with Lieutenant Grace Monroe and the senior officers. "We need to hit them where it hurts," he said, pointing to the Calary map displayed on the main screen. "These coordinates, they're the key. One of these locations has to be their central hub, the place where they're controlled from." Grace studied the map carefully. "It's risky. We don't know what we're walking into." "We don't have a choice," Ryan replied. His voice was firm, but there was no hiding the exhaustion in his eyes. "If we don't stop them now, They'll wipe us out. After hours of planning, Ryan devised a bold plan. A small team would infiltrate the machine's flagship using stolen Kalari technology to bypass its defenses. Once inside, they would upload a virus designed by Daniel Carter back on Earth. The virus would disable the AI controlling the fleet, giving humanity and the Zorathians a fighting chance. Grace volunteered to lead the mission. "I know the risks," she said when Ryan tried to talk her out of it. "But someone has to do it. And I'm the best pilot we've got." Reluctantly, Ryan agreed. As the team prepared, Grace worked closely with Daniel, who guided them remotely. Using the Kalari artifact as a template, they modified a shuttle to mimic the machine's signals, making it invisible to enemy scanners. It was a long shot, but it was their only hope. The day of the mission arrived. Grace climbed into the cockpit of the decoy shuttle, flanked by 2 engineers carrying the virus module. Her heart pounded as she launched away from the Starbreaker. Heading straight for the machine fleet, the shuttle slipped past the drones undetected, landing smoothly inside the flagship. Inside, the air was cold and metallic. The corridors were eerily silent, lined with pulsating lights that seemed to watch their every move. Grace led the way, her weapon drawn, while the engineers carried the heavy module behind her. They followed Daniel's instructions, navigating the labyrinthine ship toward the core. "Keep moving," Daniel urged over the comlink. "You're almost there." Suddenly, alarms blared. The machines had detected the intruders. Drones poured into the hallway, cutting off their escape route. Grace turned to the engineers. "Go," she shouted. "I'll hold them off." But one of them started to protest. "No arguments." Grace snapped. She fired her weapon, creating a barrier of smoke and debris. "Now go." The engineers hesitated for a moment before obeying, sprinting down the corridor. Grace stood her ground, firing relentlessly as the drones closed in. Each shot echoed loudly in the narrow hallway. Her ammunition dwindled, but she refused to back down. Finally, just as the last drone fell, a blast knocked her off her feet. Pain shot through her side, but she forced herself up, limping toward the exit. Back at the core, the engineers uploaded the virus. The massive AI hummed angrily, its glowing circuits flickering as the program spread. Seconds later, the entire ship shuddered violently. The engineers raced back to the shuttle, finding Grace waiting for them, bloodied but alive. As they lifted off, the flagship began to collapse. Explosions tore through its hull, lighting up the darkness of space. Grace watched from the cockpit, her face pale but resolute. She had done her part, but the war was far from over. When they returned to the Starbreaker, Ryan greeted them with relief. "You saved us," he said quietly. Grace shook her head. "Not yet. Not until this is finished." For now, though, the galaxy had been given a reprieve. Humanity and the Zorathians stood united, for the first time, truly united, against a common foe. But the road ahead would test them all, pushing them to their limits and beyond. The Starbreaker drifted silently through space, its crew weary and on edge. After the battle with the Zorathians, Captain Ryan Mitchell had ordered the ship to retreat to a remote asteroid field for repairs and resupply. The crew worked tirelessly, patching hull breaches and recalibrating systems damaged in the fight. But even as they labored, tension lingered in every corner of the ship. No one spoke much, and when they did, their voices were low and strained. One day, while scanning the asteroid field for resources, Lieutenant Grace Monroe picked up something unusual. Buried deep within a cluster of rocks was an object emitting faint energy signals. Curious, she brought it to Ryan's attention. "It's small," she explained, pointing at the readings on her tablet. "But whatever it is, it's old, ancient, even." Ryan frowned. "Could it be another trap?" "I don't think so," Grace replied. "It's not moving, and there's no sign of life nearby. Maybe it's worth checking out." Against his better judgment, Ryan agreed. A team suited up, and ventured outside the ship, navigating the jagged asteroids until they reached the source of the signal. What they found was astonishing. A metallic sphere etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly under their helmet lights. It looked alien, far older than anything humanity had encountered before. When they brought it back aboard the Starbreaker, the artifact began projecting holographic images into the air. Maps of star systems flickered to life, along with strange symbols and warnings written in an unknown language. Daniel Carter, still working remotely from Earth, helped decode parts of the message. His voice crackled over the comlink as he explained what he'd discovered. "It's a record left behind by an ancient race called the Kaluri," Daniel said. "They were peacekeepers, sort of. They built advanced technology to maintain balance in the galaxy. But there's more. This map shows locations of weapons caches, powerful ones." Ryan stared at the glowing projections, his mind racing. Why would they leave this information behind? "Maybe as a safeguard," Daniel suggested, "in case someone needed help restoring order." Before Ryan could respond, alarms blared again. This time, it wasn't the Zorathians. It was something far worse. Dozens of massive ships appeared on the scanners, their designs unfamiliar but unmistakably hostile. Automated drones swarmed toward the Starbreaker, firing without warning. "We're under attack," Grace shouted, scrambling to her station. Ryan barked orders, trying to keep the crew focused. Evasive maneuvers, divert power to shields. The enemy fleet moved with precision, surrounding the Starbreaker, and cutting off escape routes. These weren't ordinary ships. They were machines, cold and relentless. As the battle raged, Ryan realized they couldn't win. Not alone. Desperate, he turned to Grace. "Send a message to the Zorathians. Tell them we need their help, and show them the Kaluri map." Grace hesitated. "Sir, after what happened last time, they'll never trust us." "They won't have a choice," Ryan said firmly. "If these machines destroy us, they'll come for the Zorathians next. We have to try." Reluctantly, Grace transmitted the message, including the decoded data from the Kaluri artifact. Hours passed with no response. Just as hope began to fade, a fleet of Zorathian ships emerged from hyperspace, flanking the mechanical invaders. For a moment, both sides paused, uncertain. Then, a Zorathian voice came over the comlink. "Human vessel, you claim these machines are a threat to all life." "Yes," Ryan replied. "And we can stop them, together." After a long silence, the Zorathian leader spoke again. "Very well. But know this, if you betray us, your kind will perish." With that, the combined human-Zorathian forces launched a counterattack. The machines fought fiercely, but they were outnumbered. Slowly, the tide turned. As the last drone exploded, Ryan exhaled deeply, realizing how close they had come to disaster. Later, aboard the Starbreaker, Grace approached Ryan. "Do you think they'll actually work with us?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "But maybe this is our chance to prove we're not just a threat. Maybe we can start fixing what we broke." For the first time in days, there was a glimmer of hope, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. News of the battle spread quickly across Earth and the galaxy. Footage from the Starbreaker's cameras showed the devastating power of its primary weapon, leaving no room for doubt about humanity's capabilities. On Earth, reactions were divided. Some celebrated the victory, calling the crew heroes who had defended humanity against alien aggression. Others saw the attack as reckless and unnecessary, a sign that Earth was becoming just as dangerous as the enemies it feared. Emily Dawson watched the news coverage with growing frustration. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The ship her husband had helped design wasn't a tool for peace. It was a weapon of mass destruction. Her hands trembled as she turned off the screen and grabbed her coat. She needed to do something, anything, to make people understand the cost of this kind of power. That evening, Emily joined a group of protesters outside a government building. They held signs that read, "No more bloodshed," and "Stop the war machine." As she stepped onto a makeshift stage to speak, her voice shook with emotion. "This isn't who we are," she said, addressing the crowd. "We're builders, explorers, dreamers, not killers. But every time we build something like the Starbreaker*, we lose a piece of ourselves." Her words resonated with many, but not everyone agreed. Critics accused her of being naive, saying that Earth couldn't afford to appear weak in front of hostile species like the Zorathians. Online forums buzzed with arguments, some supporting Emily's call for peace, others dismissing her as an idealist out of touch with reality. Meanwhile, aboard the Starbreaker*, morale plummeted. The crew had survived the battle, but none of them felt like winners. Captain Ryan Mitchell spent hours pacing the bridge, replaying the events in his mind. He had given the order to fire, knowing it would save his crew, but at what cost? Images of the destroyed Zorathian ships haunted him, their fiery ends seared into his memory. Lieutenant Grace Monroe noticed his distress during one of their shifts. "You did what you had to do, sir," she said gently. "If we hadn't used the weapon, we'd all be dead." Ryan shook his head. "That doesn't make it right. We came here to talk, not to fight. Now the Zorathians will see us as monsters, just like they thought from the start." Grace didn't have an answer. She felt the same guilt, though she tried to hide it. Every time she looked at the crew, she wondered how many of them truly believed in the mission anymore. Some avoided eye contact, while others spoke in hushed tones about mutiny or desertion. The weight of what they had done hung over them all. Back on Earth, Daniel Carter faced challenges of his own. After exposing Senator Green's betrayal, he became a target. Assassins sent by the Varnacs broke into his home late one night, forcing him and Emily to flee. They barely escaped with their lives, taking refuge in a safe house provided by Dr. Laura Bennett. Even there, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that danger was closing in. "You shouldn't have gotten involved," Laura told him one evening, her tone sharp but concerned. "Now you've put yourself, and Emily, in more danger than I ever wanted." "I didn't have a choice," Daniel replied. His voice was weary, but his eyes burned with determination. "If I hadn't acted, Green would have kept selling us out. At least now we know the truth." Laura sighed, rubbing her temples. "Truth doesn't always protect you, Daniel. Sometimes it makes things worse." As days passed, the galaxy braced for what came next. The Zorathians vowed revenge, rallying allies among other species who distrusted Earth. Rumors swirled about joint attacks on human colonies, and fear spread like wildfire. For the first time in years, humanity found itself isolated, unsure who to trust, or whether anyone could be trusted at all. Despite everything, Daniel clung to hope. He believed that if enough people fought for peace, change was still possible. But deep down, he wondered if it was already too late. The Starbreaker approached the edge of Zorathian space, its engines humming softly as it moved through the void. Captain Ryan Mitchell sat on the bridge, staring at the view screen. The ship was nearing its destination, a neutral zone where Earth hoped to establish peaceful contact with the Zorathians. But something didn't feel right. The crew had been tense ever since their encounter with the derelict spacecraft near Neptune, and now that tension was growing thicker by the minute. "Anything on scanners?" Ryan asked, glancing at Lieutenant Grace Monroe. "Negative, sir," she replied, her fingers flying across the console. "No ships, no signals. It's quiet." "Too quiet," muttered one of the engineers nearby. Ryan nodded. He shared the sentiment, but kept his thoughts to himself. The last thing he needed was to spread unease among the crew. Instead, he focused on the mission ahead. If they could open a dialogue with the Zorathians, maybe they could ease some of the galaxy's fears about Earth's new warship. That was the hope, anyway. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed as the crew scrambled to their stations. On the view screen, a fleet of Zorathian cruisers appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the Starbreaker asterisk. Their sleek, angular designs bristled with weapons, and their movements were aggressive. "We're being hailed," Grace announced, her voice tight. "Put them through," Ryan ordered. A Zorathian face filled the screen, sharp features, glowing eyes, and an expression of pure hostility. "Human vessel, you have entered restricted space," the alien growled. "You will surrender immediately or face destruction." Ryan raised his hand slightly in a gesture of peace. "We come in friendship," he said calmly. "Our intentions are not hostile. We seek only to talk." The Zorathian sneered. "Your words mean nothing. Your weapon speaks louder. You think we do not know of the Starbreaker asterisk. You bring death to our borders." Before Ryan could respond, the Zorathian cut the transmission. Moments later, the cruisers opened fire. Bright beams of energy streaked toward the Starbreaker asterisk, shaking the ship violently. Alarms screamed as the crew fought to stabilize systems. "Shields at 60%. Someone shouted. "Return fire," Ryan commanded, his voice firm despite the chaos. "Target their weapons arrays." Grace hesitated for a split second before relaying the order. The Starbreaker asterisk's plasma cannons roared to life, sending bolts of searing energy into the enemy fleet. 2 Zorathian cruisers exploded instantly, their wreckage drifting into the void. The rest scattered, regrouping for another assault. Ryan clenched his fists as he watched the battle unfold. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They had come here to make peace, not start a war. But the Zorathians weren't listening. They saw only the threat posed by the Starbreaker asterisk. "Captain, we're outnumbered," Grace said urgently. "If we don't take them out quickly, they'll overwhelm us." Ryan nodded grimly. He knew what he had to do, even though it sickened him. "Activate the primary weapon," he ordered. The crew froze for a moment, stunned. The Starbreaker asterisk's main cannon was designed to destroy entire fleets with a single shot. Using it would send a message, but not the kind Ryan wanted to send. "Are you sure, sir?" Grace asked quietly. "No," Ryan admitted, "but we don't have a choice." The ship shuddered as the massive weapon charged up. A beam of blinding light erupted from the Starbreaker asterisk, slicing through half the Zorathian fleet in an instant. The remaining ships retreated, disappearing into the darkness. Silence fell over the bridge. The crew stared at the devastation on the view screen, their faces pale. Ryan slumped into his chair, feeling the weight of what he'd just done. Victory felt hollow when it came at such a cost. Later, as the crew tried to process what had happened, Ryan stood alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. He had protected his ship and his crew, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just ignited a galactic war, and there was no turning back. Back on Earth, the political storm surrounding the Starbreaker grew worse. Senator Harold Green had become a constant presence on news broadcasts, his face reddened with anger as he railed against the militarization of space. "This ship is a provocation," he shouted during one televised debate. "It tells the galaxy that humanity is ready for war, not peace. We're playing with fire, and we'll burn if we're not careful." His words resonated with many people. Protesters filled the streets in major cities, holding signs that read "Disarm now" and "Peace over power." Emily Dawson joined some of these protests, her voice rising above the crowd as she spoke about the dangers of escalation. She believed that building weapons like the Starbreaker asterisk only invited conflict, not cooperation. But while she marched alongside others who shared her views, Daniel stayed home, glued to updates from the ship. Unbeknownst to most, however, Senator Green wasn't the patriot he claimed to be. In secret meetings held in dimly lit rooms far from public scrutiny, he met with representatives of the Varnax consortium. They were sleek, insect-like aliens with shimmering exoskeletons and cold, calculating eyes. Their leader leaned forward, clicking its mandibles impatiently. "You promised us information," it hissed. "Deliver, or our agreement is void." Green wiped sweat from his brow. "I've done my part," he said nervously. "I've slowed them down, stirred up dissent. You'll get your chance soon enough." The alien clicked again, clearly unimpressed. "Time is short. If the humans complete their tests, they will deploy the Starbreaker*. Then it will be too late." Meanwhile, at the Orbital Defense Initiative, Daniel stumbled upon encrypted messages between Green and the Varnax. He had been reviewing communications logs for routine maintenance when he noticed anomalies, strange bursts of data hidden within harmless-looking files. After decrypting them, his blood ran cold. Green was leaking classified details about the Starbreaker*, including its weapon systems and flight paths. Daniel knew he couldn't handle this alone. He rushed to Dr. Laura Bennett's office, bursting through the door without knocking. Startled, she looked up from her desk. "What's wrong?" she asked sharply. "I found something," Daniel panted, sliding the decrypted files across the table. "Green, he's working with the Varnax. He's giving them everything." Laura's face turned pale as she scanned the documents. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she stood up, pacing the room. "If this gets out, it could destroy trust in the government and put the crew of the Starbreaker* in even more danger. We have to expose him," Daniel insisted. "We can't let him keep doing this." Laura hesitated. "If we go public, we risk starting a panic. And Green has powerful allies. They'll come after us." "But we can't stay quiet either," Daniel shot back. "People deserve to know the truth." After a long pause, Laura nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But we need proof. Solid evidence that can't be dismissed as hearsay. And we need to act fast." Over the next few days, Daniel and Laura worked tirelessly to gather more data. They traced the origins of the leaks, documented every interaction between Green and the Varnax, and compiled a dossier that would incriminate him beyond doubt. But their efforts did not go unnoticed. One night, as Daniel left the facility, a black car pulled up beside him. The window rolled down, revealing a man in a dark suit. "Dr. Carter," the man said calmly, "you've been digging where you shouldn't. Stop now, or there will be consequences." Daniel froze, his heart pounding. Before he could respond, the car sped away, leaving him standing alone in the shadows. Shaken but determined, he returned to Laura. Together, they finalized their plan, knowing full well that exposing Green might cost them everything, including their lives. Months passed, and the day finally arrived. The Starbreaker was ready for launch. It stood docked at the orbital station, its sleek metallic surface gleaming under the artificial lights. The ship was enormous, larger than any vessel humanity had ever built before. Its plasma cannons bristled along the hull, and its engines roared with power during test runs. Crowds of engineers, technicians, and military personnel gathered to watch as Captain Ryan Mitchell stepped onto the platform. Ryan was a tall man in his late 40s, with graying hair and a calm, steady demeanor that inspired confidence. He had spent years commanding smaller ships on patrol missions, but this was different. This wasn't just another assignment. It was history in the making. As he addressed the crowd, his voice carried through the speakers, firm yet reassuring. "Today marks a new chapter for humanity," he said. "The Starbreaker* isn't just a weapon. It's a symbol of our strength and resilience. But let me be clear, we built this ship not to conquer, but to protect. To ensure peace, even if it means preparing for war." The audience erupted into applause, though Daniel Carter, standing at the back of the room, couldn't bring himself to clap. He watched silently, his hands shoved into his pockets, feeling uneasy about what was happening. Beside him, Dr. Laura Bennett gave him a sideways glance, but didn't say anything. After the ceremony, the crew boarded the Starbreaker*. Among them was Lieutenant Grace Monroe, a skilled pilot and second in command. She moved with purpose, her sharp eyes scanning every detail of the ship. Like many others, She felt both pride and pressure. This mission would define careers, or end them. As the ship left Earth's orbit, the crew settled into their routines. For days, they traveled without incident, testing systems and running drills. Everything seemed to be working perfectly. Then, near Neptune, something unexpected happened. A derelict spacecraft appeared on their scanners, drifting silently in the void. It was ancient, its surface pitted with craters from micrometeorite impacts. No one recognized its design. "What do you think?" Grace asked, leaning over Ryan's shoulder as he studied the readings. "I'm not sure," Ryan replied thoughtfully. "Could be abandoned, or it could be a trap." "Should we investigate?" she pressed. Against protocol, Ryan decided to send a boarding party. "We need answers," he said. "If there's information inside, it might help us understand who or what we're dealing with out here." Daniel, monitoring the mission remotely from the ODI, held his breath as the team suited up and entered the derelict ship. The interior was dark and cold, filled with strange symbols etched into the walls. There were no signs of life, but the air felt heavy, almost oppressive. One of the crew members shone a light down a corridor and froze. "Captain," he whispered into his comlink, "you need to see this." Ryan joined them moments later and saw what they had found. A massive chamber filled with glowing orbs suspended in midair. Each orb pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. In the center of the room was a pedestal holding a crystalline device. When Ryan touched it, images flashed across his mind. Maps of star systems, coordinates and warnings written in an alien language. This is a treasure map," Grace murmured, staring at the data scrolling across her tablet. But the discovery came with a cost. As the boarding party returned to the Starbreaker *, alarms blared throughout the ship. Something had followed them back, something alive. On the monitors, a shadowy figure moved within the derelict craft, watching them leave. Ryan clenched his fists, knowing they'd made a grave mistake. Whatever they had awakened, it wasn't going to stay hidden for long. The next morning, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. As he walked through the corridors of the Orbital Defense Initiative, he noticed people glancing at him more than usual. Some whispered behind their hands when he passed by. Maybe it was his imagination, but the weight of what he'd seen last night, the blueprints for Project Starbreaker, was making him paranoid. He reached the cafeteria and sat down with a cup of coffee, trying to act normal. Across the room, Dr. Laura Bennett was deep in conversation with a group of engineers. Every so often, she glanced in his direction, her expression unreadable. Daniel wondered if she had told anyone about his discovery. Or worse, what if someone else already knew? The thought made his stomach twist. Later that day, news broke across the interstellar networks. Earth's newest weapon, codenamed Starbreaker*, was real, and everyone was talking about it. Reports claimed it was a massive starship capable of wiping out entire fleets with ease. While some hailed it as a symbol of human strength, others saw it as a threat. Alien species like the Zorathians and the Varnax Consortium were quick to respond, calling emergency meetings among their leaders. Tensions began to rise. Back on Earth, Emily Dawson, Daniel's wife, was glued to the news feeds. She frowned as she read article after article about the Starbreaker*. "This isn't right," she muttered to herself. Her husband had always believed in using technology for good, not destruction. Why would he be involved in something like this? That evening, Daniel returned home to find Emily pacing the living room. His heart sank. He hadn't planned on telling her anything yet, but her sharp eyes caught the look on his face immediately. "What's going on, Daniel?" she asked, folding her arms. "You've been acting strange all week." "I'm fine," he said quickly, avoiding her gaze. "Just work stuff." Emily wasn't convinced. "Work stuff? Really? Because the whole galaxy is talking about this new warship, and you expect me to believe you don't know anything about it?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. There was no point lying anymore. Okay, yes, I know about it, but it's not what you think. Then tell me, she demanded. What is it? He hesitated, unsure where to start. It's called the Starbreaker asterisk. Well, it's a weapon. A really powerful one. We're building it to protect Earth. Emily stared at him, disbelief written all over her face. Protect us? From what? You mean from the aliens? Do you realize how dangerous this is? They'll see it as an act of aggression. That's what I said, Daniel exclaimed. But they won't listen to me. Laura says we need it, to show them we're not weak. And what happens when they attack first because they're scared of us? Emily shot back. Her voice softened slightly. Daniel, I know you want to help, but this isn't the way. Weapons like this only lead to war. Daniel didn't have an answer. He wanted to defend himself, to explain why he thought it might be necessary. But deep down, he knew Emily was right. The Starbreaker asterisk wasn't just a tool, it was a statement. And statements like that had consequences. Over the next few days, things got worse. Rumors spread faster than anyone expected. Senator Harold Green, a vocal critic of militarization, held press conferences accusing the ODI of destabilizing galactic peace. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, holding signs that read "No More War" and "Stop the Arms Race." Even within the facility, tensions ran high. Engineers debated whether the project should continue, while security teams tightened protocols around classified areas. One afternoon, Daniel overheard two colleagues arguing near the break room. "If we finish this thing, we're signing our own death warrant," one of them said. "They'll come for us before we even get a chance to use it." The other shook his head. "We don't have a choice. If we don't build it, we're sitting ducks." Daniel turned away, unable to listen anymore. He felt stuck between two worlds, one pushing forward without looking back, and another warning of the dangers ahead. For now, all he could do was keep working and hope that somehow everything would turn out okay. But inside, doubt gnawed at him, growing stronger with each passing day. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of machinery and the occasional beep of a monitor. Daniel Carter sat hunched over his desk at the Orbital Defense Initiative, or ODI, a top-secret military research facility orbiting Earth. It was late, and most of the staff had already gone home. But Daniel wasn't tired. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, typing lines of code into the system. He liked working alone, especially when he was trying to solve a problem. The silence helped him think. Tonight, however, something unusual caught his eye. While reviewing data on one of the screens, he noticed a file that didn't belong. It was labeled Project Starbreaker, and it was buried deep within layers of classified information. Curious, Daniel clicked on it. What he saw made his heart race. The file contained blueprints for a massive spaceship unlike anything humanity had ever built before. This wasn't just any ship, it was a weapon. A starship capable of destroying entire enemy fleets with precision plasma cannons and quantum disruptors. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. His mind raced with questions. Why hadn't anyone told him about this? He had been working at the ODI for years, helping design smaller defense systems, but this was something else entirely. It felt wrong, almost dangerous. For a moment, he considered closing the file and pretending he'd never seen it. But he couldn't. Something about the design fascinated him, even as it filled him with unease. Before he could think further, the door slid open behind him. Startled, Daniel turned to see Dr. Laura Bennett standing there. She was tall, with sharp features and an air of authority that commanded respect. As the lead scientist at the ODI, she rarely ventured into the labs unless something important was happening. Seeing her now, Daniel knew she must have figured out what he was doing. "Daniel," she said calmly, stepping closer, "I see you found Project Starbreaker." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I didn't mean to snoop. It just popped up while I was running diagnostics." Laura sighed, pulling up a chair beside him. "It's not your fault. You're too curious for your own good sometimes." She paused, glancing at the screen. "What do you think?" "I think." Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I think it's incredible, but also terrifying. If we build this thing, it changes everything." "That's exactly why we're building it," Laura replied. Her voice was steady, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Earth isn't safe anymore, Daniel. We've expanded into space, colonized other planets, but we're still vulnerable. The Zorathians, the Varnax consortium, they're watching us, waiting for us to slip up. If we don't protect ourselves, they'll crush us." "But at what cost?" Daniel asked. "A weapon like this, it won't just scare them off. It'll start a war." Laura nodded. "You're right. That's the risk. But imagine the alternative. Imagine Earth falling because we were too afraid to fight back." For a long time, neither of them spoke. Daniel stared at the blueprints again, feeling the weight of what he'd discovered. He thought about his wife, Emily, waiting for him back on Earth. She believed in a future where humanity could coexist peacefully with alien species. What would she say if she knew about this? Finally, Laura broke the silence. "Listen, Daniel, this project stays between us. For now. Don't tell anyone else, not even Emily. Do you understand?" He nodded, though his stomach churned with guilt. Keeping secrets wasn't something he was good at, but he didn't have a choice. Not anymore. As Laura left the room, Daniel closed the file and shut down his computer. The hum of the machines faded into the background, leaving only the sound of his own thoughts. Outside the window, Earth hung in the distance, a fragile blue sphere surrounded by endless blackness. For the first time in years, Daniel wondered if humanity was ready for the power it was about to wield, and whether it would survive the consequences.